Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome the members of council, staff, and the public to our November 28th first council meeting and call this meeting to order. I would like to call upon Mrs. Pearson for the disclaimer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council members, staff, guests, and members of the public are advised that the Council of the Town of Petrolia meetings are being audio and video recorded and will be posted to the Town of Petrolia's YouTube, along with the official written minutes on our website. As such, comments and opinions expressed may be published. Any comments expressed by individual council members, guests, and the public are their own and do not represent the opinions or comments of the Town of Petrolia as a whole and or the Council of the Town of Petrolia. The recorded video of the full council meeting shall not be considered the official record of the meeting. The official record of the council meeting shall consist solely of the written minutes approved by the Council of the Town of Petrolia.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Pearson for the roll call, please.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Hyatt.
Present.
Councillor Field.
Present.
Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Patel.
Present.
Councillor Welsh. Mayor Loosely.
Present.
And we have a quorum, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. I just want to let everyone know that this, and for the council and the people present, this is a fairly large agenda. And I want just to let council know if I'm moving too fast, just ask me to slow down and I will. At this time, I'd like to go on to the declaration of pecuniary interest. I would like to request that council declare a conflict of interest now or at the appropriate time and complete the necessary paperwork. Councillor Patel. Thank you, Councillor Patel. So noted. This time it moves us on to the adoption of the agenda before you. I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Field, seconded by Councillor Wells. Any discussion regarding the agenda before you? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of adopting the agenda? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to the minutes of a meeting. This is the council final meeting of 2018 to 2026 council term. Oath affirmation of office of the 2022 to 2026 council term, 15th of November 2022. And I'd like to ask for a motion to put the minutes on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor O'Hara, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any discussion regarding those minutes before you? Errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to B, which is the minutes of a council education session held on November 21st. I'll ask again for a motion from council to put those minutes on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Patel. Any discussion, errors or omissions regarding that education council session? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of that, approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to the inspirational message. And tonight we have Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've chosen a quote from Helen Keller. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much.
Isn't that the truth? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Moving on to number 7 is the council round table announcements. I realize council hasn't had a lot of time to bring any new things up, but I will go through the process. It is an alphabetical order, but I do change it every week or every council meeting. It's rotated. So again, we'll start with Councillor Clark. Do you have anything you'd like to bring forward at this time?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple comments.
I attended the warden's banquet for Warden Marriott a week ago and was able to attend retirement parties for Lonnie Napper and Bill Weber. I wasn't able to make it to Steve Arnold's, but I think it's pretty impacting. We lost 3 senior mayors and there's a number of people at county council that'll be changing up. So I think it was good turnouts for them. And you know, I think we're losing a lot, but I think they're still around. So just wanted to make reference to that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Field. And I'm going to also speak to that as well. I was at those events. And you're right, at county council, there'll be a lot of new faces there this year. And we have lost a number of senior county councilors. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Hyatt, please.
None, your worship.
Thank you. Councillor O'Hara.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to share a couple of things that I was able to attend.
Go ahead.
So I was able to attend the Remembrance Day ceremony as many of our community was in attendance. It was great to see such a wonderful turnout. I think weather also helped with that, but it was especially exciting to see the number of school children that were back. 3 different schools, to my knowledge, were represented and the park was packed. It was a wonderful event and it was really nice to see the turnout.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. And I agree, it was probably one of the busiest and more people out or more students out than I've seen in a long time. And the weather was on our side. So, but thank you for that. And I will speak to that as well. Councillor Wells.
Just the one thing, I'm really looking forward to serving up from my large cauldron of chili this Friday night.
I hope everyone is there on Friday night and Saturday. Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Patel, did I cut you off? I'm sorry. Do you have anything else?
That's okay. Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to add one more. I
Go
was
ahead.
at the Fairbank Park on November 18th for memorial tree dedication. And I was unaware, had never been to that particular ceremony. Again, I want to just acknowledge St. Paul's United Church Reverend Carol Ferguson was participating, as well as Mandy, our cemetery manager, Mandy Pearson, and Dave Menzie, director of facility, Dave Basie and staff for the planting. It was an incredible ceremony. The weather was not on our side for that particular event, but it was warm on all the places that it counted. It was just a great dedication, and I think 11 trees dedicated this year, and it was just a wonderful ceremony. If anyone wants to look into that further, I think it's very worthwhile and very well done.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. I was there as well, and it was a great ceremony. I have a few items here, and I'm just starting as of November for council's information. I attended county council on Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2022, and will continue to keep council informed. On Friday, November the 4th, Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, and I were filmed to thank Mr. Mike LePaine, President and CEO of Blue Water Health, for his contribution to healthcare in Sarnia-Lambton. He was also thanked for working with the town of Petrolia over the last number of years. On behalf of council and staff, we wished him the very best in his retirement, and I will be attending his formal retirement on Tuesday, November 29th. That's tomorrow night. I also attended Mr. Lonnie Napper, Mayor of the town of Plimpton, Wyoming's retirement on Saturday, November the 5th, 2022, and presented him with a certificate from the staff and council of the town of Petrolia. It was a great event enjoyed by all. I took part in the marching from the Legion to Victoria Park and laying of the wreath on behalf of the council and staff of the town of Petrolia on Sunday, November the 6th, 2022. I attended Mr. Steve Arnold, Mayor of the Township of St. Clair, in his retirement on Tuesday, November the 8th, 2022, and also presented him with a certificate from the council staff of the town of Petrolia. I attended Mr. Bill Weber, Mayor of Lambton Shores, former warden, his retirement on Wednesday, November 9th in Thetford, and presented him with a certificate from council staff of the town of Petrolia. I attended the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority meeting held on Thursday, November 10th in Warwick, and I will continue to keep council informed. I attended the Remembrance Day service in Victoria Park at 11 a.m. and laid 2 wreaths on behalf of the town staff and the county of Lambton. I also attended the service and meal at the Legion at 6 p.m. and brought greetings on behalf of the staff and council of Town of Petrolia once again. I was invited and attended the Plimpton, Wyoming inaugural meeting held on Wednesday, November 16th, and brought best wishes, congratulations, and greetings on behalf of the new council and the staff of the Town of Petrolia. I also attended the IODE Veterans Dinner along with Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, on Thursday, November 17th at 12 noon at the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 216. I again brought greetings on behalf of this new council and staff. I also attended the holiday open house at the Oil Springs Museum on Friday, November 18th. And as Councillor Field stated as well, I attended the Warden's Banquet in Wyoming Fairgrounds on Saturday, November 10th. I was asked to give the invocation. Also, Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, was also in attendance. It was a great event, and Mr. Kevin Marriott announced that he would be running for warden for the next 2 years. And Mayor Bev Hand and Councillor Brian White announced that they would be running for deputy warden. And I, along with Councillor Patel, attended the memorial tree ceremony, as was stated earlier, on Friday, November 18th at the Fairbank Park. That was a great event. And I also attended the Lambton Creative County Committee at the Judith and Norman Alex Art Gallery to review the Creative County Grant Program applications on Thursday, November 24th. And they were approved, and there will be an announcement in the next few days. That's all I have. Moving on to correspondence. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. I think unless Mrs. Councillor Welsh wanted to take out A, is that correct? We'll deal with that separately. Before I ask for a motion, is there any other items in there from A to I that we would like to see taken out? So what I'll do is ask for a motion to approve B to I, and we'll deal with A separately. So I'll ask for a motion to receive items B to I. I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Field. Any discussion regarding that? Try not to forget, I'll ask Mrs. Pearson to read that motion.
Thank you, Worship. And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file correspondence items 8B through I.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. I will move it on to A, and I'll ask Councillor Welsh, please.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to move that we handle this one separately. And 1 minute, please. I have some notes here. And that the council of the town of Petrolia actually support the township of McGarry and their resolution in relation to strengthening the powers of the integrity commissioner and the ability to recommend the expulsion of counselors in circumstances of misogyny, hatred, and all forms of discrimination. And that we also send our own letter from the town of Petrolia to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs.
Okay, before we get a discussion, I'll need a seconder on that motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Field. I'll open that up for discussion. Any discussion regarding that motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right. We're moving on to number 9. We have correspondence from the Petrolia Legion Branch 216. Do they have a copy of that motion? Okay. You've got a copy. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Field, seconded by Councillor Clark. I will ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia, recommend that the Petrolia Legion connect with the Sarnia Community Foundation for provision of this service, as the Town of Petrolia is not able to provide such a service.
Before I open that up, I would hope that they'd be able to do the same arrangement as we had for Parents for Parks. And that would work out very well if they could do that. Any questions? Oh, sorry,
That's right.
Councillor Field.
So you said the Sarnia Foundation, the Petrolia Community Foundation, which is part of.
Go ahead, Mrs. Pearson.
Thank you, through your worship. So the Sarnia Community Foundation is the umbrella, and then from there, they'll dictate where the funding would fall. So it may be with Petrolia, it may be somewhere else.
Okay. Yep.
But I think what I want to do is that Parents for Parks, that process worked very well, and I'd like to have the same thing, or at least offer to the Legion. Any other discussion from council regarding that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to number 10, which is the delegation and presentation regarding the Kiwanis of Petrolia. And I'll ask Mr. Menzies if he'd like to introduce the guest speakers for the presentation, please.
Thank you, worship, through you, the council. I'd like to introduce Tara Palomino, representing the one club of Petrolia in the area, and Janet Elliott, who represents Open Space Solutions, which is the industry leader in developing open space. Lady.
Welcome, ladies. Okay, I'll ask council to move down again, please.
Thank you.
Next slide, is that okay? Sure. Okay. Oh, okay.
Good evening. Oh, we're already getting it wrong. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm Tara Palomino, President of Kiwanis Petrolia and Area, and I have here with me tonight Janet, the President Owner of Open Spaces, to answer your technical questions and also go through the designs of the splash pad. Next slide, please. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to changing the world one child and one community at a time. The children of today are our future of tomorrow. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Janet so she can explain the renderings and what we're looking at for the splash pad. I have gone too fast, too soon, haven't I? This is the one that what you have is different than the one I have. That's okay, though. You have a different one. I'm sorry. A community survey administered in November of 2019 indicated that a splash pad was the most requested facility type in our area. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan, September 2020, identified that the town of Petrolia should proceed with development of a splash pad. So in our splash pad design, we are looking to build something with a very clean design, quick installation, simple maintenance, and easy to keep up to date and fresh. We also hope to add other projects to this area in the future. Next slide, please. You'll notice the numerous community benefits that we would have by putting in the splash pad. It promotes positive mental health, accessible to all ages and abilities, activity for all members of the family, cultivates cognitive skills, promotes physical development, maintains a healthy lifestyle and overall physical strength, fosters social development and play, sensory stimulation, builds capacity in youth, interactive family play, free of charge, stimulates Petrolia's economy and tourism, and develops gross motor skills. Now, I'm just going to take a quick pause before we continue this part, because there's some really information that I would like Janet to share about the water flow. We had some pretty cool designs to show you folks, and I'm sorry there's a technical issue and I'm not sure where those went to. It's okay. There's a different PowerPoint presentation and I'm not sure that was maybe sent to you. I apologize for the delay.
I can actually talk while she's getting that loaded if you want. Is that okay? Your Worship, Council, my name is Janet Elliott. I'm from Open Space Solutions and I represent Waterplay Solutions out of Kelowna, BC. Waterplay is a Canadian manufacturer, which is great, and they've been around since 1983. I've personally been selling water parks for 17 years across the province of Ontario and have completed over 180 projects. A lot of those projects are with small towns, much like Petrolia. I think some of the ones you might know would be Thetford, Elsie Craig, Park Hill. We've done numerous parks in London and Windsor and basically throughout the province. When I met with Dave and the Kiwanis group, we started and I think we went through about 6 different designs. And then we finally nailed down some of the things that, you know, Dave, as an aside, brought to my attention were sort of the significance of having something that's low flow. And sort of the industry has changed a lot. When I did this about 15 years ago, 80% of municipalities were putting in water treatment systems and 20% were doing flow through systems where the municipal water came in and it went to drain. Over the years, it's really evolved and it's almost flipped to 85% of the municipalities are going flow through and 15% are going with water treatment systems. The biggest reason for that is operations and costs, capital costs up front, but also manufacturers have started to design pads that they're lower flow, that they're getting the same big displays. So a nozzle 15 years ago that would have taken 8 gallons per minute, manufacturers have changed and reduced it to it's 1 gallon per minute, but the same display by having smaller orifices on the nozzle itself. One of the big things that was happening with small communities is that they didn't have the operations staff to look after a water treatment system. It really is a mini facility and it does require Saturdays and Sundays. So they were getting very bogged down with the high cost of operations plus the big capital cost at the front. So what has transpired in that time in the last 5 years is we've also been able to take drain away systems and not connect them to sanitation. We've been able to connect them to storm. So that's also changed the dynamics a lot too. Most of the small communities are using a 2-inch service line. And we've actually got the Petrolia design down to a max flow of 78 gallons per minute, which means if all of the features are on at one time. When we design pads, we usually do it with a 60% or 65 of the maximum flow rate, which is putting us at 48 to 50 gallons per minute for the Petrolia pad, which out of my 180 pads is about in the bottom 5. With the size of the community, Dave said, you know, we don't want to blow our brains out. We want a nice watering hole where they can have the community come. There's camps at the location. It's going to be sort of a destination. It's really going to bring the community together. So we didn't oversize the pad either. We created this pad at 1,500 square feet, which is a very modest size, but yet for a community this size, they say 1 child per square meter. And this pad is 133 square meters. So it would be 133 kids. And we foresee that that pad could be, you know, 50 kids, but we're not going to get to that 130. So we kept it a modest size at 1,500 square feet. And our flow rate is very low considering sort of what's going on in your Park Hills, Elsie Craigs and Thetford are even much higher than that. We were able to do that because we decided to have a very unique feature as a central feature here on your pad. One of the things I pride myself on is when I go to different communities, I like to make the pad theirs. I don't want it to look cookie cutter like every other community. Elsie Craig, we had the turtle race theme. So there's different themes that we apply, but this one was kind of a no-brainer. So I went back to Waterplay and I said, we're looking for an oil rigger and we need to have this tower. And ironically, this had already been in the works for a pad in Fort McMurray. So it was really just tweaking it a little bit. We wanted to have some dominance on there for the Kiwanis Club as recognition. You know, they're doing all of these things for the betterment of the community, and it's really a way to engage other people to be, you know, giving to their community. So it just kind of fit perfect that this oil rigger is going to shoot water out the top, shoot water out the legs. It's going to be a pass through, but it also acts as a central feature that's going to split the junior features and the senior features. We've strategically put it there. You'll see a water O there too. Oh, that one's not coming full on there. Some of the other features for the senior kids that you see there is the splash blasters. three of the things that are requested the most by kids are the splash blaster cannons, dump buckets, and the water O's that kids can run through. So we thought it was really important to integrate the splash blasters. We call them that. We don't call them cannons anymore. They're water shooters, splashers. And then we've got a big wheel there that kind of reminded me of the pumps in the oil fields that are pulling up the oil. On the toddler end, you can also see we've got a lot of ground features. So there's two types of features. One's called above ground features, where you have your stainless steel features. The others are ground sprays that come out of the concrete. On your pad, there's 8 ground sprays, 3 different styles that are really good for the toddlers that like to come up and cover them up. But we've also got some that spread out like spiders. So 15 kids can be around this one nozzle that's only shooting 1 gallon per water. So that's where you start to look where they used to have just globs of water come out. Now they disperse it. And so one nozzle can entertain a lot of children. The water, of course, is the classic star there in the middle where kids like to run through. It never gets old. Don't know what it is, but they just like running through a tunnel, that water spraying on them from every side. This little orange globe is called the spinny squirt. And it's one of my favorite to use because it engages a lot of kids into social play. They gather around it. There's nozzles all over this circle. And as kids cover nozzles, the other nozzles shoot further. So it's a real cause and effect feature. Not only that, it spins 360 degrees. So it's also helping with gross motor skills and fine motor skills. So it's one of those features that we know the toddlers really like. It's also at wheelchair height. So if we have any wheelchair users on the pad, they can actually go and physically turn that from their chair. The great thing about splash pads is they are fully accessible. We space components to meet the AODA standard. And really, if you have a pathway to a splash pad, they're considered fully accessible. So that's one of the great things about splash pads. I think that's pretty well it. So you've got 8 ground sprays. You've got a above ground, I think 6 or 7 above ground features, all in a 1,500 square foot pad. And definitely the camps and the kids will get a lot. Just from my personal experience, I've been doing playgrounds for 30 years and splash pads for 17. And there's something different about a splash pad than a playground. Playgrounds are awesome. I've been to hundreds of grand openings and there's this real buzz, but there's something that happens when you have kids in water, and it's a totally different thing. And I think if you talk to neighboring communities, the splash pad location becomes that central destination point. And with everything that's being developed there and all the additions that are going to be, I think the splash pad for sure would be one of those ones that keep people coming back, and it just becomes a real hub for the community. So I think with that, I'll hand it back to Tara to sum up this part.
Thank you, Janet. Just quickly move ahead. Okay, down to business. So our club is proposing that the town of Petrolia contribute $150,000 upfront, and the board of directors of Kiwanis Club of Petroleum area will commit to paying back the loan over 10 years, so $15,000 a year. The town of Petrolia will pay for the water and sewage and the usage for the splash pad and cover maintenance costs. The proposed location, we feel that the YMCA would be a perfect location for this splash pad, and it would add to the community backyard project. I would like to thank your worship and the councilors for your time. Do we have any questions?
I think you're going to have to go back up to the seat, so we'll open up the question.
Thank you.
Deb, are you coming back up? Come on back up. Oh, no, you've declared a conflict? Sorry. No, that's fine. Before I open it up to council, I first of all want to thank you both, ladies, for coming for that presentation. It was good and clear, and I'm kind of excited about this. I think it's, I know that we've talked about it for actually a few years, but it's a great project for the Kiwanis to take on, and I'm excited about moving ahead with this. Now, I'll open it up, but I just want you to know it is listed on the agenda later on, and council will make a decision at that time. It was just brought to my attention, Councillor Patel, you don't have to declare for this part. You have to declare when we decide to make a decision. Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. This is just a technicality, ladies. So she will be declaring later on. Anyway, I'll open this up. Again, I want to thank you for your presentation. I'll open it up to council. Does any council have anything to say? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, your worship. My question is, just the surface maintenance itself. What's the life expectancy of that flat surface with all that water pounding on it?
And that will go through me. And then your answer will come back to me as well. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So life expectancy, most municipalities are amortizing that over 15 to 20 years. So really you're as good as your concrete. The features themselves are stainless steel. So we've actually had pads where we've taken them down, sandblasted them, repowder coated and put them back on and redone the concrete. So typically it's your concrete that'll go before the features. In terms of service, in speaking with Dave, I mentioned you should always put away about $250 to $300 a year, just as your maintenance in terms of parts like the cannon heads will wear down, the water splashers. So in 2 to 3 years, you might have to buy a $250 hub for one of those. The other service that we offer is opening and closing of the pads, although we teach included, there's a training session on the opening and closing. So some municipalities do that work themselves. Others have us do the openings and closings.
Councillor Clark, do you have a rebuttal to that?
I do, through your worship. My question, I kind of maybe wasn't clear. Like the actual concrete surface itself, what's the life expectancy of that area?
Yeah, 15 to 20 years.
Okay with that? All right. Any other councillors have anything to add? Councillor Field.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. I too am, kind of excited. I had people 12 years ago mention a splash pad. They have since let me know that their kids have grown up and moved out of town. So they will be coming, but just a simple question. It's a lot of water going. How many different shutoffs? How do they turn it on? Is it split into multiple sections, or if you can explain
That's
that?
a very good question. I didn't cover there. So the splash pad itself starts by the hit of a button called an activation button. Once that button's hit, it'll go into 12 sequences of 25 seconds and then we'll shut off. So it'll basically run those 12 cycles, which are all different. And then once it shuts off, it won't run again until a child hits the button again. The controller itself has every day of the week, you can set a date, time that it starts and a time that it ends. So you can have a different time Monday to Friday than weekends if you want to shorten your hours. But that's how they control the start and stop of the splash pad itself.
Councillor Field, you have a rebuttal.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. So we can control, like, we're not going to have it on at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. We're going to wait till noon.
Typically, most municipalities will have them from 10 till 8 is their hours. With the camps running there, if it's earlier in the morning, you could have it shut later at night. We often recommend you can monitor your pad for the first year and see how your water consumption is. And then if you want to reduce that, you can just reduce your hours if you choose to do that.
Councillor Field. Okay. Anything else from council? Councillor Hyatt.
Through your worship, just have a question about the oil rigger. I have little boys. I'm assuming it's going to get climbed upon. Is it safe, rated for children to climb? It looks like it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, that's another good question that's always taken into consideration. The highest point for that crossbar on the rigger is 9'8". Typically, when we build shade structures, the minimum is 7'6" or 8 foot to an eave. So playground features tend to be a little bit higher to get to that point. So it's 9'6". So not to say it'll never happen, but there is that 2% of children out there that like to push the limits. But it's well within compliance and is at a fairly high point to get up. Most kids self-govern at that point. Most, I say.
Counselor Hyatt, do you have a rebuttal or are you okay with that? Okay. Anything else from council? Counselor O'Hara.
Yeah, I guess vandalism, is that a problem in some of them?
Actually, splash pads are a lot less less vandaled than playgrounds. Because they're so narrow, they don't usually get tagged. And one of the things Dave pointed out was, let's pick some features that are fairly stationary. And so we went that mode. Beside the splash blasters, there's not too many movable parts. So it's fairly vandal resistant.
Counselor O'Hara, any
Yeah,
rebuttal?
through you, your worship, what is the cost if we have used, get it going in the spring and winterize it for the winter?
So the cost to winterize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would be looking at about $900 for all the nozzles to be changed out and all the lines blown out and antifreeze put in the lines.
Thank you.
That's okay, Counselor O'Hara. Anything else? Okay. Any other? Okay, Counselor Field.
And I think there was, this might have been answered in Mr. Menzies' report, but the warranty for this, if you could explain that maybe?
Yeah, so the least part that's warranted is the controller at 2 years. And typically, we've still got controllers out there 15, 20 years that are still running. They're fairly robust. The stainless steel features themselves are 25 years. Where this design would have parts that need to be replaced would be maybe in 5 years, some O-rings, some hubs on the blasters, and maybe 10 years down the line, a set of nozzles, which could cost about $900 to $1,000.
Counselor Field, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay, thank you. Last opportunity. Anyone else wishing to have any questions? If not, I want to thank you both for the presentation. It was very good. We're excited. And again, we'll deal with it shortly. Thank you. I think moving on to the agenda, we have the 2023 municipal fee schedule. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Counselor Field.
Your worship, actually, we're just at community announcements.
Oh, I'll just go back. My page is out of order. Just a second. Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Yes, that will bring us to number 11, which is the council announcements, our community announcements. I'll ask for a move and a second to put those announcements on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any discussion regarding those announcements? Mrs. Ellsworth, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just that we hope we see everyone downtown and in the park this weekend.
It's a big weekend for the town. Thank
Thank you.
you. Any other questions from council? If not, I'll call the vote, or I'll ask, sorry, Mrs. Pearson, to read that motion, please.
Thank you, your worship. And that is like the council of the town of Petrolia receive as information only at the November 28th, 2022 community announcements as presented.
All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to the first opportunity for the public to address council. And I'll ask Mrs. Pearson if we have anyone first of all registered, or then I'll ask the public if they'd like to come forward.
Thank you, your worship. We have no one registered at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Is there anyone here wishing to address council at this time?
Thank you, your worship. Just a quick question, please. I wondered how you could pass a municipal fee schedule without actually setting your budget first.
And that's a good point. I think we can do that, but again, when we get to the budget, there may have to be adjustments made. Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Charlebois? And everything is a little bit later this year too, because of the new council and the election. That's kind of thrown us off time. Does that answer your question?
Your worship, it did raise one more. Your water and sewer budgets are supposed to be no profit, so I don't really understand why you would build in an increase without looking at the budget. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Go ahead, Mr. Charlebois. I just want to state that council still has the option to change that proposed 4% during our budget deliberations. So we still have the option to say, no, we want to go 2, 3, or whatever. So, all right. Moving on, we'll go to the financial accounts. Normally, we do have an individual report on that. It'll be Mr. Ross O'Hara will be the one that's being appointed tonight. But I don't think we have anything for Ross to report on until he's appointed to that committee later in the meeting. And I'd like to just ask the clerk, do we have a motion for that, please? I'll get a move in a second to put that on the floor for discussion.
Is that your worship for the finance report from Mr. Charlebois, 14A?
Yeah.
Okay, so
No,
for,
13. We're just gonna defer that until our next meeting. Is that correct?
so no motion required, your worship.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to 14. And this is a report from Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, regarding the 2022 third quarterly financial report. And now I'll ask for a motion to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Welsh. And I think I'll have the clerk read that motion first, and then I'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you, your worship. And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to receive and file the report of the CAO treasurer dated the 28th of November, 2022 regarding the 2022 third quarter financial results.
And just before I open it up, I just want to state, I want to thank the treasurer, Mr. Charlebois. I'm really pleased that it's announced that we're still looking like we're on budget to come in at the end of the year with no deficit. So that's good news. Thank you for that. All right, I'll open it up for council. Any discussion regarding that report from Mr. Charlebois? Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, your worship. Just a question in general. In terms of the capital projects that are on the list but not completed, do they automatically get carried over to the next fiscal year in terms of budgeting, or do they need to be reapproved in terms of the budget process? Yeah, that's great. Thank you. May I ask a second question?
Sure, go ahead.
In terms of projects on the list that are higher than originally budgeted, did they come back for reapproval to council to approve the extra expenditures?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good questions. Thank you for that. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to the 2023 municipal fee schedule. I'll ask for a motion to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Field, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, then I'll open that up.
Thank you, Your Worship, and that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the CAO Treasurer dated November 28th, 2022 regarding the 2023 municipal fee schedule, and that the 2023 municipal fee schedule be approved, and that the 2023 municipal fee schedule come into force and effect as of January 1st, 2023.
Any discussion from council?
Sorry, I would like to bring a motion to adopt the report of the CAO treasurer that would amend Schedule F, the business licensing one-time fee for a change from the proposed $300 to $250.
Okay, I'll need a second for that amendment. So the amendment is the business rate being reduced from $300 to $250. Okay, thank you. I need a seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Wells. Now open that up for discussion, and we're just discussing the amendment. Any discussion? Councillor Field. The business license. It was, the proposal was 300, and I think the amendment, Councillor Patel is recommending it be go from 300 down to $250. The rate before was $200.
So I guess within that rate, maybe if through your worship, if staff could tell me what type of time it takes for a new license, like what the process, somebody could just break that down a bit.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Pearson, can you answer that, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. So it is, it goes through three departments. It goes through, obviously the clerk's department as a starting base. We liaise with our building services and our planning services. Sometimes the development advisory team is consulted along with our fire chief. And then it cycles back with compliance under zoning and the official plan, and also signage sometimes. So it is, it's a comprehensive process. About a week is a start to finish. So as an hour, I couldn't give you an exact how many hours staff are, but it involves about 5 staff members reviewing and bringing it back for recommendation.
And just a follow up to that, so there's county staff that are gonna be billing back as well their time.
Through Mrs. Pearson, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. That is correct, Councillor.
Councillor Wells.
And as I understand it, these are done on a cost recovery basis, so there's no revenue aside from what it costs to do the business.
Mrs. Pearson, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Welsh. That is correct.
Any other questions from council? So what we're going to do now is we will vote on the amendment first. So just so you're clear, the amendment is changing the business fee from $300 down to $250. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? That motion carries. Now we'll vote on the motion as amended. And I'll ask Mrs. Pearson to read that motion as amended, please.
Thank you, Worship. And just as a reminder, that was moved by Councillor Field, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the CAO Treasurer dated November 28th, 2022 regarding the 2023 municipal fee schedule, and that the 2023 municipal fee schedule be approved as amended, and that the 2023 municipal fee schedule come into force and effect as of January 1st, 2023.
Any questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the community services and facilities. We have a report from Mr. Dave Menzies, Director of Facilities and Community Services, regarding a staff review of the Kiwanis splash pad proposal. And you do have a map in front of you and some information. I wonder, Mr. Menzies, could you just give us a quick, brief oversight or review on what we have in front of us, please? Thank you, Mr. Menzies. And before we go any further, I thank you for that overview. Now I'm going to open it up. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder to put this motion on the floor for discussion as well as your map. So moved by Councillor Field. I need a second, seconded by Councillor Clark. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion at the start, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to endorse the report of the Director of Community Services and Facilities dated November 28th, 2022, that indicates key recommendations in regards to the Kiwanis of Petrolia and area splash pad proposal, and that staff proceed with the process, budgets, and agreements for council's approval at forthcoming meetings.
Any discussion from council? Councillor Field.
Your worship, through you, just looking at the plans for the change rooms, there's change rooms that are separate entities in the front. Is that correct? That those are individual change stalls?
Mr. Menzies, would you address that, please?
Basically, there's some change rooms that only 3 to 5 people.
Councillor Field.
And just, so you had mentioned that we initially in the proposal or the grant application had a washroom that would have looked after the soccer fields. So basically what we're doing with the plan, the master plan for overall, we're taking into account that with the concessions for future bigger change room. That's your thinking for the next phases, and that's where a lot of the additional cost is coming from through your worship, Mr. Menzies.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Menzies.
The original grant process. So as we looked at budgets, then we were thinking of phase 2, splash pad for possibly a second washroom with doors and everything. So the original concept was basically a farmer's market. No utility room, one room. Now with the development splash pad, we're trying to look long term to make sure that represents the full recreation property.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Council O'Hara.
Through you, your worship, you're not planning any showers in this facility?
Mr. Menzies, can you address that, please?
Your worship, no, we're not.
Go ahead, Council O'Hara.
Through you, your worship, again, just one more question is, would this building, would it be winterized to be heated all winter, or would it be winterized and drained and so forth?
Mr. Menzies, go ahead.
Your worship, through you, the idea would be to have it well. In the operation of development that connect to that there, whatever it is.
Council O'Hara, any rebuttal, or are you okay with that?
Just maybe a rebuttal or another question through your worship.
Go ahead.
Now, this will be locked up overnight, I presume. It'll be unlocked by staff of some sort in the morning and closed at a certain time.
Mr. Menzies?
Your worship, yes, we'll work out that process. All the public wants to with the development soccer, soccer, YMCA's, summer camp, come up with a schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council Wells.
Through you, I had a question about, I'm glad to see there's lots of water conservation going on with respect to the splash pad. Is there a plan for whether it's going to go into the sanitary or the storm sewer? Because she mentioned there was a possibility to do either.
Mr. Menzies, can you address that, please? You're okay with that, Mrs. Wells, or do you have anything you'd like to add?
For you, is there a consideration at all for storm, or why wouldn't we do that?
Mr. Menzies? You okay with that? Thank you. Okay, I'll ask again. Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, your worship. I guess I hate to use the word assume, but assuming with the larger utility area and stuff, the concept is to put everything in once with all of the phases in mind, enough power for lighting for the tennis courts and so on and so forth.
Mr. Menzies? Thank you, Mr. Menzies. Mr. Clark, rebuttal, are you okay with that? Okay. Councillor Field, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay, thank you. All right. Now, is council clear, or do you need that motion read again? Are you okay with that motion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carried. Thank you. Councillor Patel, please return. Thank you, ladies, and thank you, everyone. Moving on to administration, we have a report from Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, regarding the 2022-2026 Council Refresh Comprehensive Bylaw. I'll ask for a motion to put that motion on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file the report of Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, dated November 28th, 2022, regarding compliance confirmation to the Section 270, subsection 11 of the Municipal Act, and that the 2022 to 2026 members of council acknowledge and endorse the current Town of Petrolia's regulating policies and procedures known as Bylaw 39, 2018, as presented.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Mrs. Pearson, do you have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Hyatt.
Sorry, I did have one question noted here. I'm not sure if it's changed in the most recent update of the agenda, but it was bylaw 11, 2019. It talked about a term expiring in February 28th of 2023. I'm wondering if that should be extended to the end of this term.
And sorry, that was
Yeah.
for bylaw 11 of 2019.
That's what my note has here, but my notes have now
Mrs. Pearson,
disappeared.
can you address that, please?
I would have to look into that specific bylaw. I apologize, Your Worship. This is bylaw 39 of 2018, so I can look into 11 of 2019. Possibly, Counselor, it may be on the next item that we're thinking of that, and I can probably, if that's, are you referencing the Integrity Commission?
Yes, correct.
That's our next item of business, Counselor.
Excuse me.
All right, any other questions from council? Mrs. Pearson, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now we have a report from Mrs. Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, regarding the 2022-2026 Council Refresh Integrity Commissioner Code of Conduct, Council Staff Relations, and the MOMLA Bill 68 compliance. And I'll ask for a move and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Welsh. And I'll ask the clerk to read that motion first, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file the report of Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, dated November 28th, 2022, regarding compliance confirmation to the Council Code of Conduct, Council Staff Relations Policy, Appointment of Integrity Commissioner, and Town of Petrolia Personnel Policy, and that the 2022-26 members of Council acknowledge and endorse the current Council Code of Conduct, Council Staff Relations Policy, Appointment of Integrity Commissioner, and the Town of Petrolia Personnel Policy as presented.
Any questions from council? Councillor Hyatt.
Okay, sorry. This question applies now. Bylaw 11, 2019, related to the term of the Integrity Commissioner, should it be extended to the end of this council term?
Mrs. Pearson, you'd like to address that, please?
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hyatt. Absolutely, that is something we are able to do. The term, the Councillor, the Integrity Commissioner came in place in March, so that's why it's a March term. But absolutely, that is something this council can give me direction to extend.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Mrs. Pearson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Not at this time, but I think Councillor Hyatt may.
Councillor Hyatt?
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
maybe not formal on the process, but I'm just wondering, how should I approach the process to get that extended to the end of said term?
You could propose a motion right now if you wish. But I think what we'll do is deal with this motion first, and then I'll entertain you to bring a motion back to extend that if you like. All right, any other questions from council? So we're going to vote on the motion before you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Now, Councillor Hyatt, if you'd like to propose a motion to extend that, you can do that now. You would move a motion to extend that term.
Okay, through you, Your Worship, I propose to extend a motion to extend the term until the end of this council term, which is November of 2026.
Okay, thank you. I'll need a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Seconded by Councillor Field. Now I'll open it up for discussion. Any discussion? Counselor Wells.
Is there any sort of contract that we have to deal with the integrity commissioner?
I'll let Mrs. Pearson speak to that, please.
We actually have an ability to extend within that agreement.
Any other questions from council? All right, I think that makes sense. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, we'll move on. We have a report from Mrs. Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, regarding animal control services, JSG Animal Control. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Thank you. And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to receive and file the clerk operations clerk report dated November 28th, 2022 regarding animal control services update, and that the 2022-2026 term of council endorsed pound services to continue through the Sarnia Humane Society and JSG Animal Control.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. We are having a little trouble here with the audio. Just to speak to that, I think this is good news for the town because we've had the same animal control officer probably for 40 years. So this is good news, but I will open it up. Any discussion regarding the motion before you regarding animal control? Councillor Hyatt. I'm very happy to let Mrs. Pearson speak to that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through your worship to Councillor Hyatt. Animal control tags do encompass our services that we have, as well as the other publications of animals at large by law enforcement. So it's not just an animal that is located and brought to it. There's the other services of, we try to home them before they get to that point. So there's some administration and work that goes into that. And then, so yes, we try as best as possible to keep it to that cost recovery, and we will review that with the term of this contract.
I'd just like to add, I'm very happy with the arrangement that staff has made on this. So thank you for that. Any questions from council?
If I
Sure.
could, please, Your Worship, if you could perhaps ask Clerk Mandy Pearson to try using Councillor Patel's mic. We really seem to be struggling. Yeah. No. Can you please shut the amp off and turn it back on? Thanks.
We're back on, Ms. Larissa. No, we're not receiving anything back.
Yeah, I believe actually we're going to have a little trouble here, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I
Okay.
can't. No, sorry.
We'll all try to speak.
Me too, yeah. Mr. Charlebois, go ahead. Mr. Charlebois, that's good news. All right, any questions regarding animal control?
Biggest voices.
Big boy voice.
No,
No questions? Thank you. All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll bring us to the closed session, or in camera, we have none. And it brings us to the second opportunity for the public to address council. Is there anyone that would like to address council at this time?
Barring none, Your Worship.
You. Okay, that'll move us to new and unfinished business. There's a couple notice of motions that I put on here to be dealt with at the next council meeting. I do want to say the second one or the middle one regarding the remembrance ceremonies I'd like to withdraw that because that has been dealt with. We no longer have to deal with that. So the first one regarding the election period and the one regarding the notice of motion for the school board election will be dealt with at our next meeting of council. Okay? Now that will move us now to bylaws. And I know there's been some discussion on some amendments, but what I want to just let council know is I'm going to ask for a motion to put that on the floor and open it up for discussion, and then we'll deal with the amendments. Now, this is a little different because we're going to approve the bylaws a third time. We usually vote on the bylaws being read a first and second time. So what I'm going to do is you'll put a motion on the floor, then we'll vote on the amendments, and then we'll vote on that as amended and bring it up in the third reading as well. So we probably don't have to do it after the second one, but it'll be put on for the third reading. So I'll just go slow so you don't get confused. So what I want is a motion to put the bylaws on for a first and second reading, and then we'll hold it there. Moved by Councillor Field, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. And I'm going to stop there. Is there any amendments regarding these bylaws? Councillor, sorry.
Councillor, so those members would come and bring forward.
So we don't have to do it now? Okay, so then we will vote. I was going to deal with them now. All right, we will vote then on the bylaws being read the first and second time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So again, I never planned on this. I apologize for that. The clerk's just corrected me to say we will deal with it now on the third reading. So I'll ask for a motion to have the bylaws read a third time, and then we'll deal with the amendment. Is that correct?
Actually, worship, those amendments can now come forward. We had first and second, so yes, the third thing reported.
Okay, so I don't need to have a motion to have the bylaws read a third time and then do it?
Yes, your worship, but each one's done individually,
Okay.
so your amendments will come first.
All right,
Yeah, so.
all right, so I'll need a motion to have the bylaws read a third time. Okay, moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Clark. Now we'll open it up for amendments, and then we'll vote on them as amended. So let's do the amendments. What do we have? Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Appointment of committee and council, just my name appears twice in Parks and Recreation. I'm a civilian member and council member. Maybe we should take me out.
Absolutely, I saw that as well, so that's fine. You're moving an amendment, and I just want to mention before I ask for a seconder, just so you'll know, some of these minor little things like that can be completed by the clerk if it's a correction minor in nature. But I'll ask for a seconder then to remove Mr. Clark from being listed twice. Seconded by Councillor Field. Any discussion regarding that amendment? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment now. All those in favor of the amendment? That's carried. Okay, we'll continue on with the amendments before we approve all the bylaws. Is there any other amendments for this? Councillor Welch.
I'd like to move an amendment to bylaw 46/2022, which is procedural bylaw for council, to reflect the second opportunity for the public to address council, not be removed from the council agenda order of business, and to not require a motion from council, the public to address the council be removed.
Yeah, we'll deal with one at a time.
Oh, okay.
Let's do one at a time. So the first amendment is to leave or not take the second opportunity on. Is that correct? All right, I'll need a seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Field. Any discussion regarding that? The only thing I want to mention before I open it up then is this has been discussed before. I know it's not really used that much. We monitored for 6 months. I mean, in most municipalities, they don't have it because we still have one. I've agreed to have 2 open sessions this time for the public to come regarding any issues regarding council or staff. County does not allow anyone to address county council, And again, this was a recommendation from Mr. Nigel Bellchamber at our training session. But I will open it up for discussion and we'll debate it. Councillor Wells, go ahead.
It's probably the only thing that Mr. Bellchamber and I would agree on. So it's just the second opportunity, the business of council is complete until we've done all bylaws. So there's still opportunities for if the public have a question or a comment about a bylaw that's coming forward. Time limit and the expectation that they behave with the forum and the council meeting is still expected, absolutely. But municipal government is still the closest tier to residents and citizens. And I know a lot of citizens feel that at the provincial and federal level, they have no voice with anyone. And I think it's very important that they feel that they do have a voice here, and it would make it as easy as possible for them to come into the address council after having exhausted the other avenues through staff and directors and whatnot. And I know that it's an intimidating process already for residents to come here, and I think, oh, that's the second part, sorry. I'll get it.
All right. No, thank you, Mrs. Wells.
I want to make it as easy as possible for residents to come, because I know I experienced a lot, during the campaign period, that they don't feel like they know them so that they can come and talk.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Any other questions or comments? No other discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, and the motion is to not take it out, to leave it in. Opposed? That motion carries, so that will be left in. Okay, so that's the amendment. Now we'll go to, is there any other amendments? Councillor Welsh.
This would be, in that same bylaw, 46/2022, procedural bylaw, that it requires a motion of council for the public to address. I would request that also be removed, to remove the intimidation factor for a member or a resident to come and speak to council.
Okay, thank you. I'll need a seconder for that, please. For a seconder, Councillor Field. Again, before I open it up, my concern, the reason that was put in there, and this was discussed with staff, I think, and we used to have that here years ago, and it was a motion to come within the bar. The idea is to protect council and to control the speaker if it's something that we can't address, whether it be legal or something that's way out of line. So the idea is to protect council. The idea is not to use it or never have to use it. But I think it's something that even the county does today and still do. We used to do it, and again, it's just a protection module to try and help council. If someone is coming regarding, I don't know, the color of Councillor Welsh's breast, and it's out of line, we can say no. That was the intent of that. But I'll open it up for discussion, debate. Councillor Welsh, go ahead.
We do have other tools available to us. If a person comes up and is out of order, we have points of privilege that can be called by any member in here. And also, we've got that gavel down there.
Yeah.
You can hammer that down. Use that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Hyde. Yes. And you're right, I would have the option, I could cut them off, but again, you hate to have to get into that. But again, it's open for debate. It's to control the speaking. It's just a protection that I think many places use it. I'm not sure about Lambton County, but I mean, the county council still uses it to this day. Councillor Hill.
Just by having a motion from council, that's not intimidating to the public. It has nothing to do with it. It's the people up here that are gonna, am I right?
Yeah, still everything has to go through me as the chair. So they can't get into it. But again, it's a protection thing that I felt, and I think the staff felt it's something to have in case you ever need to use it. That's Councillor Welch.
I'm concerned that it might cause more problems than it would solve. If you have someone come up here who's upset about something, some councils will decide that they don't want to hear from that person. We need to follow the rules, obviously, and agenda items, et cetera, but, I just concerned that you're gonna bring someone else. Further.
Any other discussion from council? So the amendment is to take the part of that request to be a motion of council before they can speak. We all clear on that? All those in favor of that amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. That motion carries, so that will be taken out. Is there any other amendments? Councillor Field.
Through your worship, bylaw 42. 22. Just more of a request through you. I noticed that Heritage only has one counselor, and with the council appointment for myself, I feel that I have the time for this, and wondered if there'd be a consideration to add me to the Heritage. I can attend as a member of the public, but I could at least attend as the second council. Have 2 council members on this. I wonder if there'd be a consideration.
I can consider that. I think the idea was there was a number of members on that committee now. I'm not sure. Councillor Wells, was there 10 to 12 members on your committee now? I think that's the reason why I reduced it. Why don't let's see how things go, Councillor Field, and I can always add you later on. The intent was not to have committee meetings get too large.
It's one of the smaller ones. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right. So is there any other amendments? Councillor Welch.
Just one more.
Okay.
Wondering about the meetings of the council, especially when I'm sure this was a terrifying agenda for some of our new councilors. I understand there was some conversation about this at the education session on Monday about the possibility of moving council meetings to a Tuesday to allow more opportunity for councilors and public to review the agenda and bring forward any questions or concerns.
So we moved the education meeting from Monday to Tuesday.
Yes, or some other accommodation.
That's a motion. I need a seconder for that.
Your worship, just to clarify, the motion I had from Councillor, the motion I had from Councillor Welch was all meetings of council. So
Right. To accommodate what is against her.
okay. So that
Oh, all.
council.
Just the education.
Yes.
Any questions? First, did we get a seconder for that? I need a seconder for that. Seconder, okay, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor O'Hara.
I think that we discussed this before, and our local newspaper was quite concerned because for her timing to get to press so that the papers could come out. And if we move till Tuesday night, then she's a week late, basically on getting it in the paper, and that's why we didn't go forward with it the last time.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. I remember we did discuss it before. Councillor Clark.
Just wondering, your worship, if we couldn't maybe just get the information a day sooner rather than get the package on Thursday or Friday. Possibly we get it on Wednesday, and that gives us that extra day to review.
I think Mrs. Pearson did some extra work to get this one out because it's large, but I'll ask Mrs. Pearson if it's possible to get it out sooner.
Yeah, through your worship, to Councillor Clark and members of the council, anything is possible. For staff, we would have to rejig our day jobs, as you would call it, to meet deadlines, to get that information. Because while you would get the information on a Wednesday, staff would have to have information prepared and ready for Friday prior. So to be able to get that information out on Wednesday, staff will require it by Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday is when everything is fine. So I look to our CIO who oversees our staff, and but yes, that would be how that sequence would happen.
Again, I know we discussed this before. I think what we have is still working. Mr. Shaw, what did you want to speak to that?
Yes, your worship, I would agree, we should try to go a day earlier. The Tuesday won't work. So, the only thing it might cause, might be a few items that may not go to meeting number A, might have to fly to meeting number B, but I'm not sure we can make that work.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Field.
I agree with the other end, like, I think changing Monday to Tuesday is the major change, is pretty dramatic. If we can move it one day, and again, like we all said this to everybody who's new, there's not normally 832 pages. And I think just that one extra day, and I understand that it could impact staff, but I think it's pretty dramatic to make the change from a Monday to Tuesday, changing everything that you plan for the next year on council meetings and public meetings, and all of those are going to have to change to be notified when, if it's one day like this week. For me, I had ample time and I didn't, I know it's different for you or council too, but I think that one extra day and then we judge it from there instead of making a dramatic change with the Monday to Tuesday. So.
Thank you, Councillor Field, and I too have to state, I am concerned about changing the date. I think what we have is still working. Anyway, any other discussion from council? So just so we're clear, we have an amendment on the floor to change the date for the meetings from Monday over to Tuesday. So we're gonna vote on that amendment. Councillor Welch.
Might I change that amendment prior? You vote on that first.
Well, unless,
That's the amendment on the floor, but then a second amendment
well,
regarding the change can come forward.
I was gonna say unless the move and second are agreed upon, but that's fine, we can do that. You want a separate one?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll deal with the motion that's on the floor. Are we clear on that?
No.
So the motion is basically, the amendment is changing the date from Monday, moving the meetings to Tuesday.
That's what we're voting
That's
on.
what you're voting on. If you vote in favor, you're voting on the change. If you vote against it, it's not going to change. All those in favor? Opposed? That amendment does not carry. All right. No, all right. So is there any other proposed amendments? And at this time, we'll have the, I'm sorry, Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, Your Worship. I propose the amendment to move the report to be issued earlier.
Okay, you're moving out. I'll need a seconder for that. Second by Councillor Field. Right? Any discussion from council regarding that amendment as far as getting basically the information out the day early? Is that correct? You're asking the clerk to prepare it on the Wednesday, is that correct?
Officially, Friday.
Usually Friday by noon.
Yeah, yes, but issuance, sorry, of the agenda.
I'm just concerned about it. The system we have now is still working very well. It is going to cause some disruption to do that. And I think what we have has been working. So, but I certainly will, whatever council wishes, we'll do. Go ahead, Councilor Hyde, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we accept the procedural bylaw as written now, and we determine that it's not working, are we able to amend the procedural bylaw in the future?
Absolutely, yes, at any time. So we have an amendment on the floor, Councilor Hare.
Yeah, so we're talking about the agendas would be out on Thursday then. That would be
Wednesday, I think it's Wednesday. We're asking to move it up, and that's going to cause some disruption.
And also, Your Worship, it's basically people that want to get things on the agenda. It's going to back them too, isn't it? So you're getting further away from the council meeting when you have to have.
People will have to get the information in that much earlier to get it on the agenda. All right, so Are we clear with the amendment that's on the floor now? The amendment is to have the agenda out on a Wednesday instead of the normal process, which is by Friday at noon. And I'll call the vote. We're voting on the amendment. All those in favor of changing the schedule to come out on Wednesday instead of our normal routine? Opposed? 1, 2, 3. And I'm opposed to changing that as well. So that's not carried. All right, now I'll ask for the bylaws to be read third time as amended. And I'll ask the clerk to read that.
Yeah, so, he's coming. Right, big book. So these third readings have been moved by, Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Clark. And I just want to make sure I'm starting, I'm missing a bylaw in that. I apologize. There. Okay. No. My bylaw 42 is escaped me somehow. Yeah, 41, I just couldn't find 42, so I don't know where 42 is. All right, we're ready with big voices. That bylaw number 41 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to appoint acting mayors for the 2022-2026 council term, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 42 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to appoint councillors and ratepayers to various duties, be read a third time and finally passed as amended. Bylaw number 44, 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to establish remuneration and expenses for members of the town of Petrolia council, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 45 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to provide for the appointment of an alternate member to the council of the county of Lambton for the 2022 to 2026 term, being Councillor Field, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw 46 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to provide rules governing the proceedings of council and committees and the conduct of its members, be read a third time and finally passed as amended. That bylaw number 47 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to provide for the payment of drainage works known as the county road drain, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 48 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to confirm the resolutions and motions of the council of the town of Petrolia, which were adopted up to and including November 28, 2022, be read a third time and finally passed. And that bylaw number 49 of 2022, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Petrolia to enter into an archaeology field liaison agreement with the Chippewas of Tavis First Nation and the corporation of the town of Petrolia. Rights Road Water Treatment Plant intake replacement, be read a third time and finally passed.
Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And a motion to adjourn would be in order. Need a move and a second, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the November 28, 2022 meeting of the Council of the Town of Petrolia. We adjourn to the next regular meeting of council to be held on Monday, December 12, 2022, or at call of the chair.
No discussion except at the time. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.